In this lecture, we're going to create the browse screen for our app. It's gonna be a little more complicated than the screens we've designed so far, so here's a little preview for you guys. We're just gonna delete it now so that we can design it starting from scratch. Alright, so we get rid of this artboard and we move down here below our home screen and just create a new one. Right away we can change the feel of this artboard by using the light gray we already saved here in our color palette. There you go. And now using the rectangle tool, we're gonna draw a rectangle which is gonna have a height of 64 pixels. This is the standard size for a header on an iOS device. We are gonna remove the border and we're gonna add a little subtle shadow at the bottom of it. We just use a little blur here. As you can see, it creates a nice little shadow at the end of the header. And now we just need to lock this layer. We select it and we hit Command L, and we need to add the status bar. As always, we're gonna get it from the Apple iOS UI kit. This time we're gonna get a black one. Copy and paste, back to our canvas. Here it is. Okay, so now we need to create a little hamburger menu, which we see very often in mobile apps. To do that, we're going to use our rectangle tool as usual. We're going to create a rectangle about this size here. We remove the border and we make it of this color that we saved already here. And we also change the border radius, make it more roundy. Okay, so we have this one, and now we're gonna select it and we're gonna use again the repeat grid feature, and we're going to create 3 of them. We adjust the distance between each of the elements down to about 3 pixels. Then we select this again and we ungroup the grid so that we can make some changes to only one of the elements. We're going to zoom again, and we're just going to make the little one in the middle a bit shorter, something like that. That looks good, and we're just going to select all of them and use this little add feature to make it one unique shape that we can reuse later. Actually, let's just move it all the way to the left side of the screen and then holding the shift key again, we're gonna move it twice so that there's a 20 pixels margin from the left side of the screen. Also, we need to rename the layer into hamburger icon. So now we can add some text on top here as the title of the screen. Change the font again, the color and the size to 16 pixels, and also the font weight to a nice bold. I'm gonna center it and move it down a little bit so that it's also aligned with the hamburger icon we just created. Okay, so now we need to create our chat icon, which is gonna be positioned right here. So let's zoom in a little bit. And using our ellipse tool, we're going to create an ellipse of about this size here. Remove the border, change the color to our dark gray. And now we're gonna use the pen tool, which you can activate with the P key on the keyboard. And we're going to create another shape, which then we're going to merge with the current ellipse here. So we're going to click once within our ellipse, then outside, then inside, and then we're going to merge it here. so that it creates like a sort of a triangle. And once again, we remove the border, change the fill, and as you can see, we have a little bubble icon created. I'm gonna select both of these shapes and merge them again. There we go. Okay, so now we're gonna create a little unread counter, which is gonna be placed on top of this icon here. So we're gonna get our rectangle tool, remove the border, we're gonna change the color to our little pink that we have saved here already, and we're gonna round up the corners, and then we're gonna create some text on top of it with the number of unread messages, just a random number. I'm gonna change the font to Lato again, put down the size quite a bit and make it very bold. Change to white and position it in the very middle of the counter. That looks good. We're gonna select everything, move it to the right edge of the screen, and then move it back to the left by 20 pixels. 1, 2. And align it down here. Okay. Alright, so now we're gonna create the photo frame, which is gonna sit here in the middle of the screen. To do that, we're gonna use our rectangle tool and draw a rectangle of about this size. Okay, we're gonna move it to the center and all the way to the top, and then move it down by 10, 20, 30, 35 pixels. I'm gonna change the border color to a little light gray, about this, and we're gonna add a little shadow, a bit more subtle than that, something like that. Okay, so now we need to create the portion where actually the photo of the user is displayed. We're going to duplicate this rectangle here, Command D. Let's change the color, remove the border, remove the shadow, and now by pressing Shift Alt on the keyboard and dragging, we're going to reduce the size of the square on top to something like this. And now we just need to add our photo, which we're gonna get from Finder, where I already have a photo of a guy saved. All these photos, I get them from pexels.com, which is a great site for free stock images. In Adobe Xd, it's pretty cool because you can just drag a photo into a square and it's gonna fill it up and center it perfectly. Okay, so now we're gonna try to give some more depth to the frames, and we're gonna try to duplicate this one, Command D again. We're gonna move it down in the layers panel, and by using the handle here, we're just gonna rotate it a little bit to about this. And then once again, Command D, we duplicate it again. We grab it, move it down, and rotate it on the other side. As you can see, the effect is quite cool. It looks like there's a photo, like Polaroid, stacked on top of the other. Okay, so now let's tidy up a little bit our layers panel here. We're gonna rename this screen as the browse screen. Then we're gonna go back into our screen and we're gonna select all the elements that we have in the header. Command G, and we're gonna group them. I'm gonna rename this as the header layer group. We're gonna move the status bar on top, header on top, and then all of this are all layers related to our image frames in the center. So we're just gonna select them all, Command G, and group them. I'm gonna call it photo frame. Okay, so now we're gonna create the little section at the bottom where we're gonna have all the content like username, age, and the buttons. So we're going to use our rectangle tool and create a rectangle that goes a little beyond the borders of our artboard, because we only want our top border to be visible, not the other ones. So we're gonna change the color to a little subtle gray, something like this. Let's zoom in a little bit. And now we're gonna create a little curve here. And to do that, first of all, we need to create ourselves a little guide, as so far Adobe Xd still doesn't have any guides, so we're gonna create it ourselves and center it by drawing just a simple line like this and put it in the center. Let's actually make the square a little smaller, about this size. Okay, so now we're gonna select the rectangle and double click on it. By doing this, you're gonna enter the edit mode of a shape where you can make basically changes to anchor points and stuff like this to just, as you can see, change the shape itself. So we are going to hover on this little point at the very center of our top border of the rectangle. As you can see, there's a little pen icon appearing. That means that the pen tool is now active, and if we click on it, we're gonna create a new anchor point. And now if we drag this anchor point, obviously following the line which we created to act as a guide for us to be properly centered, we basically modify the shape and create a little angle. And then if we double click on it, this angle will become a curve, which is exactly what we wanted. Cool, so we can just select the shape we created and lock it using Command L. And then we're going to select the line that we used as a guide and just get rid of it, as we're not gonna need it anymore. We're gonna rename the layer to content section. Okay, so now we can add our text. As usual, it's Lato. Bump up the size a bit and change the font weight. Change the color to our dark gray. And we center the text. Now we're going to duplicate this text. Make it smaller to about 13 pixels. And we're gonna change it to some default text. We're gonna center it and play with the opacity to make it a little bit less prominent. 80% is good. Now we can move on and create our buttons, which are gonna be circles basically. So with our ellipse tool, I'm gonna create some perfect circle by holding the shift key and click and dragging. I'm gonna make it about this size. And we need to change the color, and actually we're gonna use one of the gray colors that we saved right here. So we're gonna hit Command 0 to see the full view of our canvas, and using the color picker we're just gonna pick this color here. Then we're gonna go back down, remove the border, and now we need to create the little cross icon which is gonna be placed inside this button. So to do that, we're gonna move a little bit outside of our artboard and use the rectangle tool to draw a little rectangle here. Going to change the size a little bit and change the border radius, remove the border, and now we're going to use the handles here and rotate this rectangle by 45 degrees. Then we're going to duplicate this and rotate it on the other side so that we have a nice little cross. We're gonna select both the layers, merge them into one unique shape, and move it back to our artboard, where we're going to center it right in the middle of our button. Now we're gonna select both these layers and group them together. Rename the layer group to button 1. And now we can duplicate this layer, this button, sorry. We're going to select the circle, change the fill, and we can select the cross and just get rid of it, because now we need to create a little heart icon which is going to be placed inside this button here. So we go back outside of our artboard and we're going to create a rectangle, actually a square, using the rectangle tool. 20 pixel, something like this. We remove the border and zoom a little bit. So now we rotate the square by 45 degrees again. And now we're going to select the ellipse tool and create a perfect circle, 20 pixel diameter. Remove the border and move this exactly here, like this. And then duplicate it, Command D, and drag it to the right side to form a nice little heart, which we're going to select in its entirety, group all together to form just one unique shape, and we're gonna put it back into our canvas and center it right in the center of the button. Let's go and rename our heart icon and move it down in the same layer group as the pink button, which we're going to rename into button 2. Let's move back up these layers, move this up, and maybe unlock this for a second and move it slightly upwards. Okay, so we can lock it again now. And let's move this button a little bit here next to the other one so that we can fix the positioning. So now that they're close to each other, we're gonna move it 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 pixels from the other one. Then we're gonna select them both and center them. Move them down a little bit. And actually let's select the text as well. Move it down a little bit. And yeah, so the last thing I think we need to do is to add the little favorites button, which is down here. So we're going to create another circle. This time it's gonna be 40 pixels, about 30 pixels. We're gonna center it, remove the border, change the fill to our blue we have here. And we just need to add a little favorites icon, which we're going to find in one UI kit that Adobe created when they launched Adobe Xd. And this can be downloaded for free from the Adobe website. And we're just gonna get a little star from here so that we don't have to design it from scratch. And we're going to copy and paste it back to our artboard, make it a bit bigger, and change it to white. And properly center it. Like that. And let's just clean up for one last time our layers panel. And that's it. Our browse screen is done, and I guess I'll see you in the next lecture.